Our commissioner briefing meeting on this May 6th. Thanks everyone for joining us. I do not have it. Yeah, there it is. There we go. I think that got everyone's attention. I call to order our commissioner briefing on May 6th. Thanks everyone for joining us. Commissioners, are there any questions about our 5 p.m. meeting agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move forward. And I'm going to turn the floor over to County Manager Pender for our Helene update.
Thank you, ma'am. This afternoon, we'll start off, as we normally do, with Dane Peterson and debris.
Chair Edwards, Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Dane Peterson. I'm with Buncombe County Solid Waste, and as Everett mentioned, we're here to provide an update on disaster debris removal progress here in the county. So the missions that we're talking about on this slide are what's called direct federal assistance type projects. And so kind of how the scope of that goes is we, Buncombe County, establish priorities and focus areas for debris removal, and we actually send those to FEMA. FEMA evaluates those and ensures eligibility, and then they send that on to the Corps of Engineers where they scope the work, and the prime contractor in our area, as y'all are well aware, is Ashbret. So that's how the work has flowed through these missions. The first one we're talking about is right-of-way debris removal. All these timelines that we keep talking about, the closeout on these missions, those are FEMA stipulated deadlines. The right-of-way debris removal mission is complete. And county staff and NCDOT is partnering with us, helping evaluate riding roads along right-of-ways and again, taking a look to see what other debris is out there along the right-of-ways. There's approximately 40 or so remaining hotspots that was reported to FEMA, the Corps, and Ashbret prior to April 11th, that they're still doing some final cleanup on those. But we're actively investigating and evaluating throughout the zones the remaining debris that's in the right-of-ways. Private and commercial property debris removal. As a reminder, the April 15th was the deadline for folks to submit their applications for right of entry. And all private property debris removal, the deadline for that is June 30 for that work to be completed. Private and commercial property demolition. Same timeline with we had to have those applications in by April 15th, and we're excited to see that we feel like where the packet and the information is with the Corps of Engineers now, that the demolition project should be starting this month. So we're happy to see that. Waterway debris removal. The waterway debris closeout or mission completion deadline is June 1st. So talking about volumes and the amount of material that's been managed through these missions, right-of-way debris removal of approximately 1.5 million cubic yards has been removed off the right-of-ways. That's vegetative debris as well as C&D, construction demolition debris material. And also along the right-of-way, total soil silt material removed is about 151,000 tons. Waterway debris removal, approximately 1.3 million cubic yards has been pulled from our waterways. These are as of May 5th. Debris hauled out of our temporary debris sites. So that's an important number as well when you think about all these missions that are removing debris, whether it be private property, right-of-way, or waterway. That material is hauled to our temporary debris sites that Ashbret is operating. And to date, approximately 1.1 million cubic yards has been hauled out of those temporary debris sites. And an encouraging note on that, so the vegetative debris that's brought to the temporary sites, it's ground up, processed, and then sent out. All that material has been taken for beneficial use in land application, so that's been reused. That's been a big benefit. Construction demolition debris hauled out of these sites to landfill has been approximately 242,000 cubic yards. Private and commercial property debris removal. So total applications received for the PPDR program was 6,074 total applications. There's still a little bit of scrubbing going on. Our debris team and Tetra Tech have and continue to work feverishly processing it. We have a touch point with all these ROE applications before they're sent to FEMA and to the Corps of Engineers for scoping. So our team has done an amazing job with that large task. So we're still working through that. I feel like that number is going to come down the total applications we receive raw, that should be a little bit less with withdrawals and other things that may have happened with a certain applicant. 4,399 of those applications have been delivered to FEMA, and 2,266 private property sites have been cleaned up to date. So the progress we feel like is going well in the field for cleanup. Another note as far as local small business participation, there was around 250 monitors, individuals hired locally here to help on the debris monitoring side. So those were folks hired locally here. And there was around 13 local small business contractors hired to help Ashburn on the debris removal side. So those are, there were some small business workshops, and there were some links that our staff helped Ashburn get tied in with some of our small businesses, so there was some participation there. Private property debris removal. So FEMA does determine eligibility of debris hazard removal on all these PPDR applications. And as a reminder, talking about what's eligible in this program, removal of hazardous limbs, trees, other debris caused by Hurricane Helene that is near a commonly used area or maintained area of the property. Removal of debris, of course, impacting a waterway. And we think about that maintained or common area, usually the standard is approximately 15 foot outside of those maintained areas, or if it poses a threat in that threshold to impact the maintained areas. So what is not eligible? Debris on vacant lots, unimproved property, and unused or unmaintained areas. Debris on land used primarily as agricultural purposes, such as land for crops or livestock. Commercial private property debris removal, again, FEMA does determine eligibility of the debris hazard removal on all commercial property applications. FEMA does that on a case-by-case basis, looking at eligibility criteria for a given property that is applied. Commercial applicants must provide proof of insurance claims, paid or denied. We have to have that documentation. And also mortgage notification if there's a lien holder, that there's the acknowledgement that the mortgage firm has, is basically authorizing that. So residential and commercial demolition, some of the requirements for selective demo that folks have signed up for in the PPDR process, signed ROEs or rights of entries. All applicants must prove that they have filed, again, through their insurance, statements of any liens or mortgage that demolition is allowed, and an inspection of the structure. So far, demolition packets delivered from county Tetra Tech to FEMA are 65. And that was the number that they were really looking for to scope that work was 50. So we've surpassed that last week. A lot of hard work from staff. We're thankful we got to that threshold. When you think about breaking that down with Buncombe County, Town of Black Mountain, City of Asheville involved in the mission, for us it's 44 in the unincorporated area demo packets. Town of Black Mountain sent 9, 3 of those are commercial, and with City of Asheville, 12 of those that were sent, 9 of those were commercial. And demolition packets in process for delivery. So Buncombe County unincorporated 15 in process. We're still waiting on some follow-up documentation from the applicant. So those are in queue, but will be sent as soon as we get that information. So debris resources and questions, we want to keep pushing this message. Thank you to the communications team, all the help they provided us in communicating with our communities. Helene Resource Center, 94 Cox Avenue. The hours of operation there are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The One Buncombe Call Center, 250-6100, hit 2 for debris. And the hours of operation for the call center are 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we also do have a email address that's been provided. We were having those emails from residents with concerns going straight to the Army Corps of Engineers, but we had an issue with the firewall, so we have brought this email account live so that folks can do that. And one reminder to more efficiently answer questions, when folks have questions about where is my private property debris removal application in the process, we've got folks that have signed up a while back, so I would be wanting to know, okay, where am I at in the process? So the folks at the call center, we want to encourage everybody, if you have a question on your application status, to please reach out to the call center. Those folks there are trained to understand, okay, we have your packet. It's with Army Corps of Engineers, or it's with Ashburn. It's about to be scoped and in the field and ready for debris removal. So we encourage folks to use that call center for questions on their applications. And as far as concerns, like I had property damage during debris removal, or just any concern with PPDR, we would encourage folks to use the email address provided on this slide. And that's the presentation for that. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you might have, Commissioners.
Thanks, Dane. Are there questions?
On the demolition, I saw the commercial for Black Mountain and City of Asheville. Do we know the breakdown for Buncombe County?
There are no commercial applications right now that were sent to, so there was a lot of effort that county staff and also Tetra Tech did to canvass and door-to-door essentially with some of the areas that we knew had high impacts. But honestly, what we saw in an unincorporated area, that a lot of these businesses were using other mechanisms for demo, either insurance, or they were just taking those measures in their own hands. So yes, that's a good question on that, but there's none that have been sent to FEMA at this point in those packets.
Dane, I don't know if you could maybe go back to your first slide about right-of-way debris removal. I actually just got off the phone with a constituent right before walking in, and they were asking about hotspots and public right-of-ways, if there's a place that they can go. I think we've talked about this before, but if folks are concerned about a hotspot in the public right-of-way, where they can report that to, and then what deadlines we're looking at to wrap that all up.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner. So the mission project with Army Corps and FEMA is complete. So the right-of-way mission, that is over with. But what we're encouraging folks to do, if there's still debris in the right-of-way and they've identified that, reach out to the call center, because we are certainly still documenting those, we're tracking those, and we have teams in the field right now evaluating that. So please have them reach out to that. We've instructed call center folks to get the address, get the location, so we can have that on our spreadsheet.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions for Dane? All right, Dane, thank you. We appreciate all the work you and your team are doing.
Thank you.
Next is Allison Danes from Park and Rec.
Hello, good to see you all, Commissioners. Appreciate you allowing me to give you an update on where we are with the parks today. Wanted to start off with a quick overview of the park system as a whole. You'll see to start with that we initially started doing park assessments through all of our park properties within 3 weeks of the hurricane. And so that consisted of us going out, taking a look at what we saw, taking a great deal of pictures, writing up different types of reports in order for those to be turned into our insurance company. And then later on, we'd go out and do assessments with FEMA. Those assessments have also been completed for our damage inventory for each and every park property that we have. They went out and measured everything, took a great deal of pictures and measurements, and so we're ready to move forward there. We also did tree assessments in all of our parks to ensure the safety of our tree system and any visitors that come into our parks, to ensure that we're maintaining good, healthy trees, and anything that was seen as dangerous. We did remove dangerous trees that were already dead or were more than 50% dying based on arborist recommendation. And we plan on continuing tree assessments throughout for the next umpteen years as we progress with our park system. All of the damaged fencing that occurred throughout our park system at various sporting locations has already been replaced, so we're very excited. The last of it is being replaced at the sports park. We've also started doing some hydroseeding at some of our key areas where we were able to start getting rid of some of those mud flats that we've been seeing, trying to move forward. We were excited to re-kick off our system-wide master plan. We had a re-kickoff meeting last week. We're working with our consultant who is going to be adding some scope so that we can identify new needs based on the hurricane and what has occurred. We were originally set the day after the hurricane to reveal where we were with our master plan and our findings, but we think that it's prudent to go back out into community to ensure that we're meeting priorities, because we know that these priorities have changed and that there may be new gaps in our system. As far as greenway projects go, those were delayed. We are in District 13 from the NCDOT, and all of our projects were put on hold. In January, we were informed by the NCDOT that we could move forward with those greenway projects, and those greenway projects consist of the Woodfin Greenway, which is 2 sections, Highway 251 and the Beaver Dam Creek section, and then also the Enka Heritage Trail. So we were informed that we could move forward with those, but that we knew that we would need to do assessments because there's been a great deal of damage along the projected alignments that we had, and so we need to do submittals that will get approved by the NCDOT. They also informed us that there was not any additional funding to see that we move forward with those. And so we'll need to look at, once we get those submittals and once we understand the full cost of what it will take to build those greenways, we'll be sure to keep you informed. The Buncombe County Sports Park, we're very fortunate that it was able to be a hub of the community during time of recovery. It was a comfort care station. Also, we're able to get those fields up and going pretty quickly. The brand new turf fields that we had on fields 1, 2, and 8 really maintained well and were able to be opened. We already had a TDA ask where we are currently in design for fields 3, 4, 5, and 9. So those will become turf fields, and we will also light those. So we are moving forward with that project as that funding was already secured through the TDA. The last thing that I'm excited to announce is that we did put out an RFQ, or a request for qualifications, in order to get engineering going for the rebuild of Owen Park. It was one of our most devastated parks, and we are currently in our evaluation period where we will get back questions and evaluate and move forward with a contractor to work with community and consulting to bring that park back. So this is an overarching list of all of the different river parks that we have. And you'll see that only Cochrane Page River Park is fully open. And then you'll see where I've got that Hominy River Park is partially open. And part of that is because the peninsula was greatly damaged. But even pre-hurricane, we were working to bring that peninsula back to life, to bring into compliance with conservation easement that we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain. It says here that these parks are closed because they're toll sites. And so waterway debris cleanup began in February of 2025. And 6 out of 7 of our river parks are being used for waterway debris cleanup. While they are in there doing that, we are not allowed to allow people in there. There's a lot of machinery going in and out. And so it's not safe to be in these areas. And so they're designated as these offloading sites. We anticipate that that will end sometime in June, is what we've been told. Once that occurs, we will then do site inspection with the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that everything is good. If there was any damage that was done, we'll then repair whatever that damage is. They'll be taking care of that. They've already repaired some damage that has been done. If a fence has been hit, they take care of those types of things for us. And then we'll reopen the site as we're able. We do need to do some initial stabilization. I thought it was important. This is the Ledges River Park. You could see very clearly what it used to be, and post-storm where there is a great deal of silt and such that is there. And so even once it's no longer a toll, we're still going to need to go in there and do some hydro seeding and some initial bank stabilization so that we can preserve that for future use. I did want to add just several of these pictures again, just to show that these river parks were heavily silted. A great deal of vegetative debris occurred on them, was lost as well as the banks destabilized. And so we'll be working through this. It's difficult to see. Alexander River Park actually lost 6 feet of the park itself into the water. And so we're not even sure if we'll be able to drive down into it, but we'll do everything we can to ensure that that park is open and able to be used from the top side down. So for our sports fields and park status, You'll see here that only 2 of our parks are actually closed. We'll go over those as well. And then we've got Cane Creek and Collier Cove that are partially open. I'm excited that our pools will be opening with an on-time open of May the 24th, so we're very excited to announce that to folks as well. Everybody should be well aware now that Owen Park received probably the most amount of damage. As I said, we're very excited that we are moving forward with engineering that park, and we'll be doing a great deal of community engagement to ensure that the amenities that go back there meet the needs of that community and that they're very much a part of that design as we move forward with rebuilding that park. I do also want to point out that this is a timely endeavor. It's going to require a great deal of engineering, planning, design, as well as ensuring that we have our funds. We'll be using a series of FEMA funds, potentially some PA grants. We do also potentially have some insurance that may help with some of the buildings out there, and then we'll see where we land in terms of funds. But right now, we're anticipating that that project is probably a good 2 years out from conception to opening. And that's going through all those processes there that I have outlined, and you can ask questions if you've got any about that. Carpin Soccer Field, not a lot of people know about this place, but the people who do hold it dear to their hearts. This is, Reams Creek totally flooded this area here. You can see where the silt totally overtook the entire field. There was also a walking track around there that had become a total washout, and there was a large hole that's there. And so we will need to rebuild that soccer field and walking path and remediate that sinkhole that's there as a result of that. And do some more bank restoration. We're looking at 8 to 12 months in order for that project to be complete. Cane Creek Park. Actually, Cane Creek is a multi-use kind of field, so we'll have our Cane Creek pool will be open. The playground has been open here, but that field is being used as a debris site. So we were very happy that we could offer that site in the very beginning where there was so much debris that was coming and going, and it's been a real key area for debris. But as a result of that, we have had hundreds of thousands of pounds of debris on that field. So once that debris is removed, we will very much need to remediate that field, get rid of the compaction, and come up with a way that we can get that brought back. And so we're really hoping, again, to be able to rebuild that, and it's going to take us anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending on when that is actually completely free of debris. Collier Cove Nature Preserve, another beloved area of recreation for this community. It's got 29 acres. There's about 2 miles of hiking trails that are out here. There were 2 major landslides that occurred out here, and there were over 100 trees that came down. We were able to get those trees cut and moved to the side so that the trails could be opened. A great deal of that debris still remains out there, and so we're having conversations about how to mitigate the fire risk that may exist out there as a result. In the meantime, we were able to section off the areas where the landslides were so that that park is now partially open. So of the 2 miles, approximately 1.5 miles is open. So we've got about about a half a mile that's closed. But that half a mile will probably be closed for a little while until we can really stabilize that and figure out what the cost of stabilizing that will be. So as I said, the pools, we're very excited that they'll be opening. I've listed here our hours of operations. High level will be open May the 24th through August the 10th. Once school is out, we are open 7 days a week. And this year we were excited. We were able to expand our pool hours and operation at 3 of our locations, Cane Creek, Irwin, and Hominy. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, those sites will be open till 7 p.m. in order to meet additional need. We know that these pools are very popular. We've got a total of 5 pools listed here, and all of them we anticipate will be highly used this summer, as we know that pools are at a premium. We're excited that Lake Julian Park, while it sustained a great deal of debris, loss of trees, we were able to bring that park back pretty fast fashion. We're very excited. All sections of this park are open. There are two sides of it. So there's the main side that folks know of, that's off of Long Shoals Road. And that section has a large playground area. Our marina is over there, fishing area. The marina fencing has totally been taken care of and is rebuilt up there. We do have 3 docks that were wooden docks that sustained catastrophic damages, and so they're completely gone. But the majority of the docks that we have out there are usable, and people are coming out and using them. A key thing to know is at Lake Julian, what occurred is the dam has what's called board and batting that Duke Power used to use when it was a cooling pool, right? When it was a cooling lake back in the day. And what happened was those board and battings, they broke. And so the lake went down approximately 4 feet. And that has made a huge difference in terms of where our docks are, and now several of our docks are not fully submerged. We have been working with Duke Power, and they have committed to us that they will rebuild that board and batting back on that dam, even though they no longer use that dam in that same way, because they realize the effect that it has had on the lake, and they're looking to be good partners. And I've just heard word that they're in permitting for that. And so we're hoping by the end of the year that that will be completely fixed, and then it'll at least bring the lake up, but the lake is still usable at this time. The back side of Lake Julian is known as the Fisherman's Trail side. And over on that side is where our disc golf course is. We had over 100 trees that came down. There was a microburst on that edge over there. All of those trees have been removed. We do have that open, but there still is a great deal of tree trunks and stumps that are there, and we're working through the process to see how to get those removed and ensure that we could take off the caution tape and allow people full access. The Buncombe County Sports Park, as I mentioned, it is also open. It was that key location. The community garden is open, our dog park, the disc golf course. We were very lucky there. The disc golf course here only lost about 3 trees, so we were very lucky on that front. The walking path sustained some minor washout and debris, but nothing that was too terrible that we couldn't open. The lower fields, which are fields 6 and 7, are grass fields, and those fields did flood completely, and also our volleyball courts flooded out. And so we're in the process again. I think by the end of this week, the fencing will be completed on field 6 and 7, but the rest of the fields are open and being used at this time. So in terms of those turf fields, like I said, we're under contract, and we're in design for those, and we're looking into having those fields completed late spring of 2026. The other thing we're working on is we've got a grant from the state for an accessible playground. So we are working through contract negotiations right now for that, ensuring that we can get, actually, that's not true. We signed the contract for that. We have a contract for that. We are working through design, and that we just started the design on that and working through what permitting is needed in order to be able to move that forward. And so we're hoping that we can get that open within 12 months. With that, I'll take any questions.
Your questions for Allison?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you and tell you how often I hear from community members how much it means to them to have the parks back open to where they can get out, especially those with families. So thank you all for the good work that you've been doing to help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. I think we just recently received several emails from the folks who use Collier Preserve on the regular, and I know they're really excited about having that one back as well. And great updates too about our greenways and where they're progressing to. I've heard from a lot of folks about those as well. Were there other questions? Did I cut someone off? All right. Thank you so much, Allison.
All right, thank you.
Next is Matt Cable to talk about housing and rebuilding.
Good afternoon. You have gotten used to seeing community development staff here to present information about housing. This presentation is a little bit more expansive, so we did reach out to other departments. Permits and inspections provided us with some data points, as well as internally working with our development services division and our floodplain manager to include additional rebuilding data. Before, you would have noticed that we've been kind of really focused on damage assessment and those temporary solutions, which we'll cover, but this presentation is a little bit more focused on the actual rebuilding effort. So I'd like to start with the baseline of just as a reminder, pre-storm estimates for total housing units in Buncombe County were just over 137,000 units. That included a mix of various housing types, so single family, multifamily, manufactured homes, duplexes, so a variety of types of housing in our community. Again, as a baseline, FEMA has completed the inspections process. There will be opportunities for appeals, but we feel like the numbers are pretty stable at this point from FEMA damage assessments. You will note that they have indicated 368 units have been destroyed, as well as 734 with major damage, and over 11,000 with damage reported. So not in that major or destroyed category. This is new information. We haven't shared this before. We were waiting until we were a little further along in the process. And again, we're working to get this data scrubbed as accurate as we can so that all the numbers match, because we get some FEMA data from a couple of different sources. But we thought it was pertinent at this point to go ahead and share the general idea around the types of units that were damaged or destroyed. I would look at these kind of as percentages rather than the raw numbers, as again, we continue to refine the data. But not unexpectedly, the bulk of the damaged units were our single family units. That's the bulk of the housing type that we have out in our community. The next highest would have been manufactured homes, not completely inconsistent with the regular percentages. About 11% of the housing stock in Buncombe County is manufactured homes. We're seeing about 15% of the damaged structures being manufactured, so slightly higher, but not dramatically different. You will see a dramatic difference, though, on that destroyed structure data point. So again, while single family is the most predominant use, here we're seeing that manufactured homes were among the most impacted in destruction. And just again, as kind of a reminder of the distribution of that destruction, so this is the latest data map that shows obviously a lot of impact on the eastern side of the community, which we've discussed at length, and along our riverways and in special flood hazard areas, areas of landslides, and then some scattered destruction as well from other instances. We did want to include the substantial damage determination update. So at this point, 355 residential substantial damage determination letters have been sent to residents in Buncombe County, so outside of the city of Asheville and Black Mountain, which enforce their own flood damage regulations. These are just some images of those structures that would have been substantially damaged. There is an appeal opportunity, and we can answer some questions about that. I do have Bob Haynes with permits and inspections, and then Angela Lee, our floodplain manager, is here as well if we have specific questions about these substantial damage determinations. And then looking at, because this is something that you've seen at virtually every housing update, where we are in terms of sheltering and temporary housing solutions. So at this point, we can report that all of the TSA has ended. So the last folks, there were 3 folks there last week that exited as of Friday. So we no longer have any Buncombe County residents in temporary sheltering assistance. There were housing plans with those last 3 for a more permanent solution. You'll see that the rental assistance number continues to climb. So this is households that have ever received rental assistance. So it's not indicating that many households are currently receiving rental assistance, but it's a cumulative number. So we would expect that number may continue as we move forward to increase. We've added a new category, the continuing temporary housing assistance. So these are folks that are receiving a longer term amount of rental assistance from FEMA. So again, that number may increase. We understand that there were 125 applicants that were still under review for that source, but we have 33 folks that are currently eligible and receiving that kind of ongoing support as they work to stabilize permanent housing. And then you're going to start seeing, or anticipate to start seeing, the continued decline of folks licensed in to housing that FEMA has brought into our community, right? So we're now at 66 households licensed in. So that means that the folks have exited to more permanent solutions. And looking at our temporary permitting, so this is important. So again, 66 folks are still in units, but 72 were permitted. So we have some vacant units at this point that FEMA has provided. We have issued 112 individual permits to property owners, so individuals coming up with their own temporary solution. And then, if you'll recall, the state issued a program where individuals could certify on an affidavit that a structure that they intended to use met a state specified guidelines. And so we've had 3 individuals utilize that affidavit to be able to provide a temporary solution for themselves. Those are a 180-day period of approval, and so each individual permit actually kicks off that 180-day window. But again, temporary solutions by the property owner themselves. Looking at residential repair permitting, so what we've included on this slide is just as an example. So this was a pre-storm event you'll see on the left, an aerial post-storm. So obviously there was some water inundation. And then the properties at this location in Shenandoah have been restored. So there were a series of duplexes there that have been restored. And so part of that residential repair permitting, it's just to highlight that in order to recover and restore this property, it would have required zoning, floodplain development, and building permitting. So this is an example of how those permits work together in order to actually lead to restoration and repair. And so we do have data on the zoning permits, and we're currently able to break those down by the type. So we have seen a total of 173 residential repair permits, again tagged with the Helene tag. The bulk of those have been for manufactured home repairs, followed by single family. And then we do have garage and additions that needed repair as well that would have been damaged. So those are our total zoning permits. We also have included, though we're not able to break them down into those categories just yet, total residential repair building permits. So we have over 1,600 of those permits. So there is a big difference, and I think it's important to explain why we have 173 zoning permits, but over 1,600 building permits. Not every repair will require a zoning permit. So some of those building permits are issued without needing to have a zoning permit. So that's going to be an elevation. And each individual trade permit is tracked. So a single site may have several trade permits, electrical, plumbing, et cetera, in order to achieve that repair. So that number is going to be elevated in the building permit side relative to the zoning permit. Another important part of residential recovery really is new construction as well. So we just wanted to provide you an update on where we are in new construction permitting. And these are building permit numbers. So from October to March, we've had a total of 773 units that have been permitted through permits and inspections. That is relatively small compared to the same period in the prior fiscal years. And so we did want to reflect that, but an important part of recovery is how we are moving forward in new development as well. We'll shift now to talk a little bit about commercial rebuilding. This is a harder one to get at where we are in a baseline. If you think about commercial activities, there are a number of ways to look at how much commerce or activity is happening in our community. We thought a good baseline, a conservative baseline, would be to use the parcel data. So we have about 7,000 parcels in Buncombe County that are a commercially classified land use. So they could include multiple individual commercial entities or activities, but those are just the baseline number of parcels with the commercial classification. About 2,800 of those parcels are within the county and outside of the city, so within our jurisdictional boundaries. And of those parcels, about 16%, so of those 2,800 in the county, about 16% or 440 of those were within the special flood hazard area. So a lot of our commercial rebuilding is obviously a result of flooding impacts, particularly in the city, but also in the county. So again, looking at the substantial damage determinations, there have been 45 non-residential substantial damage determination letters sent. Again, a similar process for those individuals. They can appeal those determinations if they provide estimates showing that did not incur substantial damage. And then looking at kind of the multifaceted, again, approach in order to proceed with repairing the sites, you're going to need, in a lot of cases, flood damage prevention permits. You're going to need zoning permits and building permits. So we've included that data here. A total of 37 zoning permits have been issued to repair commercial property with Helene damage, and 55 building permits have been issued for that with that same tag. So here's an instance. Again, we're talking about rebuilding and recovery. The pre-storm and post-storm at the intersection of US Highway 70 and Patton Cove Road. And those units have gone through that permitting process and have been restored to pre-storm condition. And then again, another important component about commercial recovery is what do we have that's new? What are the new activities? So we have provided the building permit numbers for you for that same October to March period. We've seen 20, which is about 20% of what we'd seen in the similar time frame in the prior year. Just to add, we did want to share the floodplain development permit data for you. It isn't yet broken down by residential and commercial, so we've included it here at the end. Floodplain development permits are required for any real activity that's happening in the special flood hazard area. All structures, trade, fill, grading, stream restoration, bridges, culverts, so anything that's happening there. A total of 276 floodplain development permits have been issued since Helene, including 200 Helene-related floodplain development permits, as well as 76 that were not associated with Helene. So again, the bulk of that activity is in Helene-related recovery.
Sorry, Matt. Oh, time for questions. Those last three numbers, is the 76, I guess what I'm looking for is it how many floodplain development permits do we normally see on a normal year? Is the 76 kind of that metric?
I can have Angie probably be the best person to give you an idea of kind of the typical volume. Obviously,
Yeah.
everything is really elevated from Helene.
Right.
But I'll ask Angie to.
And then what's the difference between the 276 and the 200?
200 is part of. So 200 of the
Oh.
276
Yeah.
are the Helene related.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm the floodplain administrator. So last year, just looking at that trend, it was about 186 floodplain development permits within the last 6 months. This number varies. It purely depends on whether the homeowner or the commercial property is going to do construction. But those listed permits that we had on that last slide, those will be all the permits that we are seeing coming through. So it might not be purely based off of the structure alone, but one structure could do multiple permits. So we're counting the number of permits versus the number of structures.
Right. But it's still a decent metric for activity, kind of generally. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions for Matthew about housing?
It would be helpful if you could just talk a little bit about the substantial damage and the appeal process with that, just in case we get any questions.
Sure, yeah. So the substantial damage determination process is a FEMA process that we're following with our ordinance. FEMA has a list of criteria that we'll do a damage determination that we've been using Tetra Tech, our contractor, to go out and do field inspections and use the criteria to give us a determination. As the county, we officially make that determination, and then we send out these letters notifying the owner of their substantial damage determination rating. From there, it is up to the landowner or the homeowner of the commercial property to come through with a building permit with their plans to rebuild. Each permit will be it will vary based off the structure. So there are different regulations when it comes to a property that was built prior to the adoption of our ordinance versus ones that were post. The appeals process, again, will be dependent on the property value, and I'm sorry, not the property value, the building value. So we take the land value outside of that, and we take the value of the structure itself, and then compare that with the damage and their restoration rebuild. It really starts getting down to the specifics of the individual building. So once the owner comes to our office with their plans to rebuild is when we start digging into their specific situation. But we do have the appeals process where typically you'll see an appraisal come through with those, because we compare the structural damage to the market value of the structure alone.
Are there any other questions? All right, thanks for this great update. We appreciate it.
So Andy Zoller and this is Nathan Green. I have Stacy. You're taking the place of two, is that it?
You're stuck with me today. Yes, I'm taking their place today. We cut down the slides a little bit, so no need for the whole team to be up here. Hello, everyone. I'm Stacy Wood. I'm a communications manager here at Buncombe County Government, and we wanted to share an update with you all on the Helene Resource Center. Let's see. That's okay. Oh gosh, these are old slides.
Nope,
But-
nope, I actually removed
Oh,
Tyler before you.
oh, okay. Well, then let's go back. Tyler, you're up. Good, because nobody wants to see my face. Tyler.
Oh, no, that's not working. Nope.
So actually, after that heavy conversation, I moved an easy conversation and good news. So I asked Tyler to come and talk about some new funding opportunity for our community, so.
We're bad with awkward silences, so you can sing and dance if you want.
I think I'll spare you that one. Okay. All right, well, good afternoon, Commissioners. So just wanted to provide a update on the individual and household assistance programs. Just to quickly jump into a background on the programs. So in November, just under $1.6 million in ARPA funds were reallocated to support the Helene Household Assistant Programs. $300,000 of that went to Grace Covenant Church, with just under $1.3 million being assigned to Buncombe County Economic Services. Applications were opened between December 5th and December 18th, and we received over 5,800 applicants. Shortly after, in January, the commission approved the execution of an interlocal agreement with the City of Asheville to receive an additional $624,000 in CDBG DDRF funds. There we go. As of today, all of the ARPA dollars and funds granted to the program from the city have been spent. Through these programs, you'll see ARPA, which is the program that was managed directly by Economic Services, was able to support mortgage, rental, and utility assistance, serving 325 households at an average of just under $2,400. Next is the Grace Covenant program, providing rental assistance to 122 households, with just under $2,500 being the average. And then the CDBG dollars, we were able to assist an additional 160 households, with the average amount of assistance being $3,500. Overall, through these three programs, we've been able to assist so far 607 households, and all of those households are at 80% or lower AMI. So, some good news, we have been approached by the city of Asheville about managing additional CDBG dollars to support this program. Some terms of the interlocal agreement is that the total amount would be $135,000. $125,000 of that would be CDBG DDRF dollars, with the remaining amount being from their normal entitlement funds. If accepted, the dollars will go towards rental assistance for City of Asheville households that are at 80% AMI or less. The county will be receiving an administration fee of approximately 10%. The grant payment structure will be a cash advance, so we will not be fronting any dollars. We'll be collecting the information, assigning eligibility, and then requesting the dollars from the city to then pay the bills. And then reporting, as participating entitlement community, the City of Asheville will be responsible for reporting to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So next steps, the City of Asheville staff will be bringing the interlocal agreement to City Council to be reviewed and hopefully approved on May 13th. And if it is approved, then we will be coming back to you all for approval on May 20th. Any questions?
Any
A quick
questions?
question, just in terms of the number of people that we're hoping to assist with this amount of money. One, I think it was a very successful program. I know plenty of folks reached out, and that was a lifeline that was much needed at the time, and continues to be needed. Is there any kind of estimate of how many folks we're hoping to help this go around? I'm roughly trying to do the math here. 300,000 the first time the Grace Covenant allowed them to serve 122 households. Are we looking at like a third of that, or?
Yeah, so great question. I apologize, I actually skipped over that in my notes. So we're basing it on the average amount that we are able to assist with the CDBG DDRF dollars originally. So we're estimating a minimum of 34 households.
Excellent.
I think our county manager was correct. You did bring us some good news. Thank you, Tyler. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, quick.
Oh, one more
sorry.
question? So
Sorry,
sorry.
maybe this is actually for Avril. New guy question. Is 10% typically the overhead fee that we take for those?
No, that's not typical, but that's the max that that grant can do.
Okay.
So.
And do we think that's about the 10% administrative cost? Is that about what we need? Could we explore maybe even lowering that a little bit so more money could potentially go to assisting families?
I would have to look at, is that Nate or David? I can answer that
David.
question. David is standing.
Yeah, and I understand we have staff costs and there's absolute time commitments to moving that, but just exploring ways we can put that money to help more families.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Sweat, Director of Health and Human Services. Economic Services, obviously one of our divisions, and we are the ones who administered all of that other information that Tyler showed you. In terms of the amount, a lot of the programs that have been provided have not allowed us to have any overhead, in a sense. And so for some of this work, we were paying out contractors, temporary staff, and we had no means of reimbursing ourselves for that expense through some things. So one of the things we've been lobbying for to the state is that whenever money becomes available, that an administrative fee be added in just to give us some flexibility to help hire temporary staff when needed. So I can't speak to what's typical, other than to tell you what's typical is we have not been getting any. We have not been getting any help, but we have been advocating to be allowed to have some capability, some source of funding that is not coming out of the fund balance or some other place that's not budgeted to help us hire temps when needed. Although I'll point out that this amount of money, $135,000, is not going to take long to disperse. And at this point, we can probably still use the 5,826 applicants that we originally had. But in the future, as more, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm hoping that in the future, we have more opportunities to help people out. But at that point, that list will be pretty stale, and we'll have to redo the application process.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your questions.
And Commissioner, I just got a note that typically the federal rate would be 15%, so this is actually reduced to the 10%.
Okay. Okay, thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you both. We appreciate your work. Now it's time for Stacy.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon again. Just a quick update on the Helene Resource Center. As we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the Helene Resource Center replaces the disaster resource centers that were located at the Weaverville Town Hall and the Fairview Library. So all of our partners are now under one roof over at 94 Cox Avenue, downtown Asheville. There's free parking, bilingual staff, and we are open every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This team also is an extension of the One Buncombe call center as well. So the staff there on site are triaging client or survivor needs as they walk in the door, and they're also answering the One Buncombe call center line as well. So here is a timeline of the Resource Center development. We stood the center up within about a week, thanks to IT and emergency services and our Human Resources Department, as well as HHS staff and strategy and innovation. So on the first day, on the first official day, the 14th, I believe we served 95 survivors in one day. So we considered that a great success. External stakeholders, as you can see here, include FEMA, State Disaster Case Management, Small Business Administration, private property debris removal. Staff are on site to answer PPDR questions. We also have a couple of other FEMA hazard mitigation folks, and we have 2 customer service representatives and 1 coordinator on staff now. And just a quick shout out to the folks from FEMA who are in that building. Today, with my eyes, I witnessed Eric, a FEMA individual assistance representative. No less than 6 people came in today from one community to ask for Eric specifically. So he has developed these relationships with these communities, and they are coming to the center to see him specifically. I checked with him today, he has no plans to leave, so we're excited to keep Eric. And Lucy has also been great. So just the staff there on site are really great, and we just encourage the community to come down, speak to someone in person if they still have issues or questions. So again, this is a kind of redundant but services overview. There's a picture of the center. There's some of the staff there on site as we were kind of doing the soft opening. This slide is from 4/28. I do have an update for you on the number of customers served to date. We have served 513 customers to date. The majority of customers are coming in for FEMA, and we still see a large number coming in for PPDR as well. And just to follow up to Dane's presentation about the call center, just to give you an update on the the volume of calls coming in through the call center, they saw 304 calls come in over the past 7 days, and that data is from this morning. So still getting a lot of call volume as well, with questions about general questions and questions about PPDR. And that is the end of my report, pending any questions.
Go ahead, Terry.
How many disaster case managers do we have here in Buncombe County? I've been asked that, and I'm not sure. I was thinking you'd said 12 at one time, but I couldn't remember.
Those were the early days, but that has increased now, and I think we're up to over 30 now. But Nathan is making his way forward. He can give you more details.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Nathan Green. To answer your question, we have made some headway on that. We do have currently 47 that are on staff. They are in the process, which to hire 28 additional to get us to the 75 goal that FEMA provided funding for initially. They'll reevaluate the need once we get the 75 onboarded and then determine whether there is any need ongoing. In addition to that, they're hiring 14 more call center staff for folks to do intake and navigation, along with those 28 that are in the pipeline right now. I didn't hear you. Where are they located? They're located throughout the state. We have 10 that are primarily working here in Buncombe County right now. Once those folks get onboarded, we're going to reevaluate that structure and reevaluate the, I guess, the leadership roles along with the DCMs that might be dedicated to Buncombe County or at least take on a larger portion of Buncombe County residents along with the other counties in the region.
So we only have 10 of, I think
So
I'm
there's 10
confused,
that
I'm
are
sorry,
dedicated.
Nathan.
All 47 are working in Buncombe
Okay.
County, but there are 10 dedicated to Buncombe County, and that's the only cases they deal with.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
So, yeah, that's helping me, because, okay, so if somebody calls and needs help, they may be assigned to somebody who is not located here in Buncombe County.
Correct.
Okay. And then, but there are 10, so if because part of the feedback I'm getting is some people are haven't necessarily had the most optimal experience with getting the help they needed, and they said it's because they feel like it's somebody who's not here and doesn't really understand what's going on the ground. And so, what is the process if they're having that challenge and they want to be able to have someone directly here in the community to work with and to help assist them?
So as of right now, until we get all 75 onboarded and we can reevaluate how we're going to structure that Buncombe County direct delivery, I guess, for lack of a better word, we don't know right now, but what we're trying to do is get each county or disaster case manager at a 35-to-1 ratio, which is recommended by FEMA for disaster case management, and work through that. So that would be part of that model.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Drew.
Yeah, I was just curious if, are those positions currently active and posted anywhere? Anywhere could we help promote those?
They are. They have been promoted. They're doing the interviews right now
Okay,
and should be onboarding probably within the 2 to 3 weeks.
okay. So are there still positions open right now that you're hiring for? Okay,
So they're completely hired. I think they had roughly 30-some applications to fill the 28 that was the balance.
got it. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
That is the end of Helene.
That is the end of the Helene update. All right, thanks, everyone. We really appreciate the updates and the good work that you're doing to help the residents of Buncombe County. And Lillian Govis is joining us with a community engagement update. Hey, Lillian.
Hi. So kind of expanding beyond the Helene recovery updates, but also all of the other work that we've been talking about. We certainly have several plans that we are working on as part of our regular operational work and also part of our recovery work. So how do we make sure that our community engagement strategy and processes are working for our community as we work to get the information we need to develop those plans? So y'all know we've got our 5-year strategic plan. We've got our Envision Buncombe recovery plan. We've got our Parks and Recreation Master Plan that was put on hold with the storm. We have a pedestrian plan that is kind of in purgatory right now while we work on getting contractors to help with that. And then we have our Swannanoa Small Area Plan. All of those kind of operate around the long-term comprehensive land use plan, which has been adopted. And so we are working on all of these plans at the same time. Some have overlapping deadlines. And so how do we work with our community to get the input we need to shape these plans and build the outcomes that benefit the community while also being the highest and best use of the time of a community that has been through quite a lot. And I know a lot of folks, 3 of y'all were at the Swananoa Grassroots Alliance meeting last week or the week before, with such a great turnout there. And they were asking us, please coordinate on all of these plans. And so certainly that is something that we are going to do. So our engagement strategy is community centered, right? We are working on that grassroots community engagement, making sure that when we say, can you give us a few minutes to answer some questions, they know that the questions that they answer are going to be utilized in a way that will have a benefit on their life. It will impact them. We're going to build on that community trust. We certainly saw that trust come through when we had our Helene Recovery Series throughout those highly impacted areas, and we saw hundreds of people show up and come and take advantage of the resources that were there. So how do we make sure that our engagement also builds on that trust that we saw during those events? We're going to check in and we're going to pivot if necessary. If something isn't working, we're not going to keep doing it hoping that it's going to work. We're going to change our strategy and make sure that we are achieving those results. If we're seeing that we're getting an abundance of results within the city of Asheville, but we're not hearing from the town of Black Mountain, we're going to go to Black Mountain and we're going to talk to folks there to help make sure that we've got representation. We're going to layer on those social media and digital strategies, right? Focus on the grassroots community engagement. My old mentor would say, an invitation to everyone is an invitation to no one, and it made me crazy, but I say it all the time now. So there must be something to it, right? So how are we making sure that we're doing those individualized invitations while also having the broad community engagement? We also are ensuring that in this process, we're going inside out, that our employees know that what we are doing in terms of outreach to the community, so that when they're asked, when they're doing their grocery shopping and someone sees them in the store, they're able to talk about the things that we're doing as well. And then using media to amplify. Yesterday, WLOS did a story about our Envision Buncombe survey, and boop, we saw an increase in the number of participants who were participating in that survey. Building on that, we're trauma informed, right? We have been through an incredible trauma together, and people's experiences over the last 7.5 months vary widely, but there's no one who hasn't been impacted by what this community went through. So we're going to make sure that we're offering opportunities for healing throughout our engagement strategies. We're going to meet community where they are. We are meeting community where they are. We have aligned ourselves very closely with Bounty and Soul, and we're going to a number of their markets. Last week we had 300 folks in partnership with Unite and Bounty and Soul, where we did our entire presentation in Spanish and collected that feedback also in Spanish from those community members. And then we're inputting that into our system and translating it to make sure that regardless of if Spanish is your language that you choose to speak in, we're going to make sure that you can participate in that language as well. We're reducing the burden on our community with our engagement, not just with Envision, but also with our other plans. Yesterday, we had a great meeting about the Parks Master Plan, and we made some big shifts in our engagement strategy so that we can reduce that burden on the community. The current survey has 4 questions, and that's on purpose. Because on Thursday, when we're with Bounty and Soul at the food distribution at Bilo, and there's 400 cars in the line coming in from Highway 9, we can't hold up that line because we want to ask 25 questions. But we can ask 4 questions and not hold up that line and still get participation from folks while they're waiting to go through. And we're going to use our existing input from our community. We have the first round of input that we got for the 2024 strategic plan. So how are we going to use that? We got a ton of participation with our comprehensive plan. How are we using that to inform what we're doing? We also are working with the city of Asheville to gather the input that they got from their Parks Master Plan to make sure that we're carrying those themes over to our Parks Master Plan. So information exists out there, and we need to make sure that we're leaning on that and not just continuing to start from zero. We also have our community survey, our public opinion poll. That tells us how people want to get their information from the county, how they want us to connect with them, and we're using that to guide our engagement activities as well. That's true of the long-term recovery plan, the strategic plan, the Parks Master Plan, and what we'll be doing in the Swannanoa Small Area Plan. We're going to be very intentional about our community meetings. I think government has changed a lot in how we do outreach to our community, and we used to say we're going to have a big meeting and you come to us and we'll be here at this time, and leave your kids at home and figure out a plan and drive really far and we'll be right here. Now we're shifting that, and we're doing a lot of going to people where they are. That's not saying that those traditional meetings don't exist in the format. We're having 3 of those with our commissioner town halls. First one's on May 22nd. Free advertisement. And so we are having those town halls, but we're also layering on the resources from those community support agencies and county agencies, so that if folks go there and they need to talk to someone from permits, they can also talk about permits while they're there and get answers to their questions, and talk to y'all and get answers from y'all about other things that are happening in their daily lives. Of course, we'll be asking for input on our plans where appropriate. So we have those 3 big town hall meetings. We did not do one in Swannanoa because we know that we're going to Swannanoa in December for that design charrette. So that's part of our strategy of making sure that we're not putting the burden too much on a community that has been through a significant amount of trauma. And we're going to support the local economy where we can. One of the cool things that we're going to do with the Swannanoa Small Area Plan is we're going to have pizza with a planner at Good Company Pizza on Highway 70 in Swannanoa. It'll be in July. We're just going to buy a bunch of pizzas. Come have a piece of pizza and talk about a small area plan. And that's a way for us to be really ingrained in the community where we're trying to connect with folks, easing that burden, making things a little bit easier for folks as we gather that information to inform decision making. And then invite us to your meeting. We've been invited to a few meetings so far. Folks can just email us at pio@buncombecounty.org. There's the Swannanoa Grassroots Alliance, where we had 100 folks turn out at Terra Nova Brewing, and we filled the place up even when they were closed. The other photo is from that meeting with Unite and Bounty and Soul. We had 300 people come through that meeting, so we absolutely want to go to places that are already having community gatherings, and we won't take too long or have a big, lengthy PowerPoint presentation. So this is a little glimpse of how we know what's working, and this is some data from our dashboard on our public input portal, and this is from last week, and you're looking at data from the Envision Buncombe survey. At that point, we had 1,100 participants. We've had 1,300 participants now. So in the last few days, another couple hundred people have participated, and then you can see the demographic breakdown of where people live, right? We've got 11% showing up from Swannanoa. That's a really significant number for a community that only has about 7,000 residents, right? To be 11% of those respondents. So this helps us know town of Weaverville, Leicester, Arden, those are some spaces where we can focus some of our engagement. Of course, we're going to be at Kuntz Intermediate School for that May 22nd town hall. That helps us with that South Asheville area of making that connection and gathering that input to inform this. One of the other things that we can do through our platform is allow people to subscribe. We have 227 subscribers noted on this. These are your early adopters. These are people who want that information. Yes, please email me. Guess what? We're going to email you. We're going to keep you updated on that project. And so those are folks who really are like the influencers of their communities, right? We also have a really good open rate with our subscribers. So our Helene update email, we have 2,000 subscribers, 62% open rate. That's kind of unheard of in the government sphere, so we're going to brag on that for just a second. Angelica Tyler on our team does a really great job of trying to make sure that we're not bombarding with folks, but we're getting useful information directly to the inboxes. We also can get a little bit into the weeds on the data, but we see that 1,022 people have navigated to the Envision Buncombe using that Spanish URL. That helps us know that we're getting representation among some of our hardest to reach communities. We can see when people navigate from LinkedIn or from WLOS, and we track that. So we're watching those things to see what works and really lean on those in those spaces. And with that, questions?
Lillian, I got a quick question. Do you have, specifically thinking of the wheel of plans slide diagram, do you have handouts for that sort of thing, or for any of your sort of
With the wheel on it?
yeah, or something like that that kind of could describe to the public what we're working on in terms of plans and things we're gathering input on?
And how they work?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were sharing that wheel at the Swananoa meeting. We also can add on those community-driven plans like what Mountain True is doing and show how those connect as well. But we can get you some that work for the overall county plans, and then our corresponding partners can plug in where they are coming alongside of us.
I think that'd be awesome. I know there's a few of us that have coffee shop office hours, and we're all in the community at various meetings and gatherings, and could, might make sense to bring some to that sort of thing, so.
We can make it happen.
Need to turn my mic on. This is a great update, and it really is terrific to not only see that open rate, but how well you and your team are starting to reach and continuing to reach our Spanish-speaking population. Very well done. That's not necessarily an easy task.
Thank you. Thank you. And we did get a confirmation on a location for the District 2 Town Hall. It'll be at North Windy Ridge Intermediate. And that's in between when they're going to be waxing the floors. So we should be good on summer maintenance programs.
Great. Thanks so much, Lillian. We appreciate you and your team. All right, Karen Marshall is joining us with a personnel ordinance and HR policy update. It's good to see you, Karen.
We'll knock the mic over. Hopefully I'm continuing with good news here. So Chair Edwards, Commissioners, good afternoon. In preparation for the May 20th Commissioners meeting, today's briefing is scheduled to provide a snapshot of the county's efforts updating our personnel ordinance and the development of our standalone HR policies. All this is being done to ensure that our personnel ordinance and HR policies comply with current employment laws and align with good HR practices. Just a bit of history. The county started the review and revision process of our personnel ordinance back in 2021 with the goal of eliminating conflicting language and creating standalone policies that provide details and transparency for our employees. Although our efforts up to this point mark the end of this specific project, we are keenly aware that as new employment laws are enacted and there's a need to implement more HR best practices, the county will continue to propose updates to our personnel ordinance and policies. Okay, are we going here? This slide is an overview of our timeline and updates. You see it goes back to 2021 that have occurred, of course, since 2021. Commissioners, where you see an asterisk, that's for standalone policies that were developed by county staff. And there's quite a few policies that have occurred, and for some this may seem like a long period of time, but I know some of my colleagues say it's taken them 10 years to even go over their policies. So I think the county has done really a great job of updating our policies up to this point. Not to say there's not more to be done, but there's quite a bit of work that has been done up to this point. During the May 20th Commissioners meeting, I will be presenting the most recent proposed personnel ordinance revisions and the standalone policies, HR policies. A little bit, I'm not clicking here. Are we advancing? Okay, there we go. Later in today's presentation, I will briefly share the ordinance revisions and the policies that require board approval, and basically the other policies that are just for awareness purposes that will be brought to your attention. But for commissioner approval, the personnel ordinance, any revisions that we have there will be coming for your approval at the May 20th meeting. Benefits area where we have revisions would be coming for your approval. And then, of course, the position classification area, that's the policy, that's a new policy, will be coming for your approval. And then, as I mentioned, for the commissioner's awareness, we'll be sharing the recruiting and selection policy and workplace violence policy. Am I pointing this the right way? Trying to advance. Not sure why I'm not advancing. Oh, there we are, because I'm not pointing hard enough here. We're proposing applicability language in the effort, the applicability language that you see in bold there, in an effort to acknowledge that while it's often necessary to have policies that apply organization-wide, it's also important to recognize there are instances where more restrictive policies are needed for specific operations. So the language that we're proposing that accompany all our policies states, this policy applies to all Buncombe County departments and employees unless there is a conflict with GS 153A-103 related to hiring, discharging, and supervising employees. Such exclusion is noted at the end of this policy. Otherwise, departments may adopt and enforce policies that are more restrictive than county policy. Hey, going on to the benefits policy, of course, this is a policy that requires board approval. And it's basically necessary due to recent, I should say, the House Bill 1020 that was put into effect in January of this year, that opens up the 401k plan where even our temporary employees can participate in the plan. We're also proposing an update to the policy to clarify that Buncombe County contributes 8% amount to, when we say regular employees, that is often referred to as permanent employees, salaries, 8% of their salary to the plan if they're a contributing member to the local governmental employees retirement system. And then also proposing removal of the language that Buncombe County commissioners are not eligible to participate in the 401k. Okay. So the position classification policy is a new policy. Again, it requires board approval. It's a new standalone policy. It removes existing language from the personnel ordinance. Article 2 ensures positions are classified according to duties, responsibilities, and qualifications needed for incumbent employees. And the key concepts for the classification policy is for maintaining the position classification plan as adopted by the Board of Commissioners, provide guidance for position managing process with a change in class or salary grade, and provides Board of Commissioners oversight for adding and deleting classes of positions. I think I went too fast there. Okay. The recruiting and selection policy, this does not require board approval. This will become just for your awareness, is a standalone policy, removing existing language from Personnel Ordinance Article 4. It provides a framework for the county hiring manager, supervisor employees to navigate the recruitment and selection process to promote equity, transparency, and compliance with laws and regulations. And of course, I'm going to read all of this, but the framework for this policy is just identifying the roles and responsibilities is worth mentioning here. Talk about the qualification standards, and you can see the rest there. The workplace violence policy, it will be presented to you all for awareness as well. It doesn't require board approval. It's a standalone policy. It removes existing language from the Personnel Ordinance. Appendix B codifies and standardize efforts to help employees identify, report, assess, and mitigate security incidents and threats. And of course, the key concepts of this policy include zero tolerance for threats, intimidation, coercion, or acts of violence, identification of security incidents, reporting of security incidents, investigation, threat mitigation, and management. And my last slide is basically our next steps. Is the public hearing for Personnel Ordinance on May 20th, the approval of the resolution amending the Personnel Ordinance, and approval of amended benefits policy and a new position classification policy. So if I can answer any questions at this time, I'll be happy to.
Other questions for Karen?
Yes, thank you for that overview. Are you going to send us something that we can see these policies written out?
Yes, yeah, and we will have the, what we call the crosswalk, where we say what's been changed along the way as well.
Do you have any estimation of when that would be? Because I don't read employment handbooks very well before coffee.
I think it's Wednesday.
Wednesday before the.
It'll be
Yeah, because we,
Wednesday.
I'm sorry? With the normal packet, which is Wednesday.
The
Thank you.
14th of next week. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Karen. We will
Thank
see
you.
you back on the 20th.
All right, thank you.
All right, and Melissa Moore, our finance director, is joining us to discuss tax exempt bond proceeds. Hey, Melissa.
Afternoon. Do we have slides? So the item that I wanted to present and introduce for request for action for the following meeting would be to surrounding our reimbursement resolutions. So the request would be for the Board of Commission to grant delegation authority to allow finance officer, myself, as well as the county manager to sign reimbursement resolutions. So your involvement would still be on the front end when project ordinances come to you for approval. That's where you appropriate the funding. That gives us the legal authority to spend those capital dollars. On the back end, we would still be required to come to you prior to issuing debt to receive your authority, go through public meetings and stuff like that. So in between, after we approve the project ordinances, we start working on these projects. This is before we're even allowed to issue the bonds. So in order to reimburse ourselves for any of those approved project costs, we need a reimbursement resolution in place, and that's an IRS requirement. So once you spend money that will be a portion of a tax exempt bond, you have 60 days from that to put a reimbursement resolution in place. So delegating the authority to myself, the county manager, to sign off on these would just really make it a more efficient process. So we can go ahead and just make it a part of the process. Once we have project ordinances in place, we can just go through and include all of those types of work into a reimbursement resolution, have that in place, and once we go to issue bonds, we just include that, submit it over to our project team, which would include our financial advisors and our bond counsel, to show that those resolutions were already enacted. So the type of projects that we're talking about that would be covered by reimbursement resolution, your capital projects such as your county projects, vehicles, equipment, as well as school capital projects. So these are any capital projects that we issue tax exempt bonds for. So are there any questions about?
Do we have that many of these that's necessary? How many are we talking, just for my edification?
We typically do one probably once a year. It's just if we ever forget, then we're not going to be able to use those bond dollars when we issue them to go back and reimburse cost. So it just helps to make the process a little bit more efficient. And it is also very common to see local governments have the delegation of authority to their finance officer to allow them to sign off on the reimbursement resolutions. Because your approval is still required on the front end and the back end. So we couldn't do anything that would allow us to move forward without having those capital projects approved before you anyways.
So help me understand how we're currently doing it.
I put them on the agenda and ask for you to approve the resolutions, the reimbursement resolutions.
Okay.
So this would just remove that step. I would be able to sign the reimbursement resolution based on your delegation to provide that authority to me.
Commissioner Whitesides?
And how often does this happen a year?
Typically once a year, if we were to forget to list anything on that reimbursement resolution that we'll be issuing debt for or something like that, we may have to bring another one back.
So I guess the reason you're being asked the same question like 3 different ways is because we, for transparency's sake, we just want to make sure we're not missing, because I don't necessarily know where this shows up on our agenda. Is this like a part of a consent agenda thing that we just do as a matter of course, or? And I think I have the answer to that now, but I think that's the tenor of question that you're seeing from all 3 of us, is just making sure that we know where this falls in our normal process.
So I do have one more follow-up, because you said the word twice, Melissa, if we forget. Has that happened?
I don't think so, but it's definitely a fear of mine. Once we go to issue debt and we add up all of the things that we've been spending projects on, and we got to track down these reimbursement resolutions. I don't know, it's just a fear of mine that we may forget to list something sometime. And then it's that process of getting it on the agenda and the days before. It just helps eliminate all of that.
Commissioner Moore, to your point of where this shows up, every time there's a debt issuance, we need to remember that we typically spend the money ahead of time, and then we want to come back and get reimbursed for that item that we set in our budget is going to be debt funded. And this is a small piece of paper that we try to make sure that we bring onto you. We bring you a list of all these other things that you have to approve. It has to go to LGC if it's a large debt. So all that oversight is still there, but there's this IRS rule. It is an IRS rule that says we can reimburse ourselves up to that 60-day window that she mentioned. And it's not just about forgetting to do it sometimes, but if we bring a resolution to you and said we're going to reimburse ourselves for vehicle and equipment, and then we don't add one thing, that one thing is missing from that list. So not the overall forgetting to do the process, it is maybe one thing, and then because we meet every 2 weeks, and if we don't get it on that 2 weeks, we might miss that 2-week window of reimbursement. So I think what Melissa's trying to do is almost like belts and suspenders in my mind, where should that one thing happen, she can quickly sign it. If you want to put in place where that she would then come and report back to you what she had signed, that would be helpful. But I think she's bringing this forward for efficiencies of where, as we move forward, it is not losing oversight from the board. It is not losing oversight from the LGC. In North Carolina, that is a pretty strong case of how you can borrow money.
Yep.
This is really that belts and suspenders. Should something happen that we didn't add something in, you cannot get reimbursed, and she don't want to lose that opportunity. So
So
I think-
fundamentally, I have no issue with that. I just wanted to make sure that we're, even if it's a
Yes.
courtesy email, letting us know that that's something we're complying with, because I
And
hear IRS and I always,
And I think beyond the courtesy email, it would be nice to come back to the board and just say that this has happened and we've signed a resolution to reimburse ourselves. I think that is a loop that we can close and put that in policy.
that'd be
When
great.
does the clock start ticking on the 60 days?
From the time you write the check.
Okay.
And theoretically, in that time, we could have a really messed up time frame where we wouldn't meet sufficiently to.
This is really helpful. Thank you, Avril.
Yeah.
Are there any
that
further
makes sense, yeah.
questions or follow-ups for Melissa? All right, we'll see you back on the 20th with this.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, does anyone have anything to discuss before we adjourn? If not, we will adjourn our briefing, and I will see everyone back at 5 p.m.